Welcome to this initial presentation for EAL102 Foundations of Professional Learning. The first part of this presentation will be common to all of my units from here on in. Thereafter, the second part will be varied to fit the unit situation. This first slide lists the intended learning outcomes for this unit. They are what we and you expect to be able to do at the end of the 13 weeks of the semester. They're important for me as a lecturer because they are where I start both building new units and revising established units such as this one. Before anything, I need to decide the unit objectives and review their place in the wider course plan. These learning outcomes are where you should also start the unit. I've been concerned in the past that some students go heading into the content or the assessment tasks without really having a good idea of what they're really doing in the unit. These learning outcomes are in the unit outline, but it can be easy to overlook them as one seeks to find out what one will be doing in the unit. Well, from now on in, expect them to be right there up the front and re-quoted to you on numerous occasions. You can find the learning outcomes in the unit outline, where you find the preamble on successful completion of this unit. It's in one of the tables in the unit outline. Each learning outcome is started with an action verb. And in the applied learning units, these will be verbs of implementation rather than just the restating of knowledge. You will find similar objectives listed at the start of each module. You should have no doubts where you're going at any time. If you do, ask us. Because you are education students, it's professionally important that you know the educational logic behind what I'm doing here. The term constructive alignment was developed by John Biggs, a Tasmanian, and a UTAS graduate. The concept isn't rocket science and thus elegant in its simplicity and in its application. Biggs argues that for education to work, the intended learning outcomes, assessment, and teaching and learning activities need to be mutually self-supporting, just like a tripod. It's no use assessing something that hasn't been taught or that's outside the scope of the unit. Similarly, introducing topics that have nothing to do with the outcomes or assessment just doesn't make sense. The term used for the latter is curriculum drift. This is where lecturers take the opportunity to inject their favourite topic into units because it's a favourite, they know about it, and they want to push their own barrow. This applies not just to university studies. It's like putting short crust pastry assessment task into a lesson series on soups, or retaining wall construction techniques into a unit that's supposed to be testing concrete slab skills. In a vet context, the weirdness can stick out like a sore thumb. In a uni setting, it's when students ask, why are we listening to this lecture? Or when students put into evaluations that the assessment task had nothing to do with the unit. I find the best way of thinking of constructive alignment is as a three-legged stool. If just one leg is weak, the stool falls over and we end up on the floor on our bums. The stool simply can't do its job. The rather small screenshot you see before you is of a tool I've developed called UMAP. Essentially, it maps all the key elements of a unit, from intended learning outcomes through the assessment tasks, learning activities, professional teaching standards that you'll learn about in this unit, and the Australian Qualifications Framework outcomes. You don't have to be across all of the detail, but it should demonstrate to you that constructive alignment has actively been applied to the development of this unit. It has been built properly, not just cobbled together. And this is why all the bits should fit together. In a highly abbreviated format, this slide shows that learning outcomes 1, 2, 4 and 5 use information literacy from topic 1 of module 1 in this unit to facilitate evidence of learning from topics 2 and 3. Most specifically, the assessment task demands that you actively and effectively engage with the learning management system, that's Milo, new knowledge, and discussion with others, including me. If the learning task is to matter, and it's that which is at the heart of the unit, not the assessment, then we should see the newly gained skills empowering and enthusing your learning. If you wish to have a look at how the connection is made in UMAP for this unit, just click on the link that follows straight after where this presentation is in Milo. The next step after looking at the learning outcomes is to check the assessment, in this case the Task 1 plain English file in the assessments folder. If you can make sense of the assessment task and bring it together with the learning outline, then you're in a position to actually get into the topics in Module 1. And through active engagement with the discussion boards, wikis or web rooms or whatever tools we use, contribute to the achievement of the assessment. But before heading off too quickly, make sure you also, out of the assessment folder, get hold of the rubric. That's basically what looks like the marking scheme, but it's a lot more than that. Get familiar with it and keep it by you as you progress through the learning activities and start orienting towards the assessment. It tells you what all of the elements are that are meant to be in the assessment, and also tells you the standards and the levels that we utilise to say whether something is a pass or a high distinction. It's not a surprise that should come out of the blue. And in fact, you should be able to constantly go back and check that you've got all of the elements required for the task as per the rubric. The assessment criteria align with the unit intended learning outcomes, and the descriptors in the rubric link to the learning activities. As the slide says, know the outcomes, understand and take ownership of the assessment, and engage with the learning activities. This is how you will build the stool, a stool that you will know intimately, and you'll be able to sit comfortably on it and feel very satisfied. That's the objective of building a unit this way.